Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome Melissa, where we're going to be talking about spirituality, connecting to your higher power, and linking this to confidence. So, a quick introduction to Melissa, and then we're going to dive into today's conversation I'm looking forward to. So, Melissa is a yoga instructor, Reiki master, and spiritual influencer of the Heavenly Pennies podcast, which explores universal signs, spiritual purposes, and soul passions. She is also the author of the upcoming book, Pennies from Heaven, which elaborates more on her story and what she likes to call raining pennies. They aren't only copper coins, but take form in many reflections of God's creations here on earth. So, pleased that we could get this in, Melissa. I know we've been talking for a while. To have a conversation, get this in. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about you and actually what's got you so into this spiritual side of things, and actually how I know this started from childhood. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, first, thanks so much for having me, Johnny from the UK. Oh, you're awesome. And really a pleasure and full of gratitude to be invited on your show.
You're
I know
welcome.
that I had you on. It was like pandemic time when I started it. And you've just been really committed and going through it, and just want to give you a kudos on that because it shows it's been paying off. So yeah, going into my journey, and I really dive into it in my book, which it's coming 2024. I feel the number. It's my year. But really it's about diving into your intuition, listening to that inner voice. Sometimes when I tell people I hear things, it may freak them out a bit, but it doesn't freak me out because it's just been a gift that I've kind of embraced. But there was a time as a child that I would hear it and I couldn't control what it was that angels, loved ones, those who have passed have been trying to tell me. It's like almost like your higher self as well. It's not like you hear someone
Mm.
speaking like I'm talking to you. It's like that thought, that passing thought, that moment when you're like, wait, that was something different. I'm going to listen to that. Maybe you get that little ping in your stomach at the same time or something. Then you see the penny from heaven, the cardinal passing across the dashboard, or you're seeing a butterfly, or you're seeing a feather, which fell on the ground right before I hopped on your podcast. So I felt the need to put it here. But it's those moments. And as a child, I was hearing these things and creeped out because even as a child, I knew that if I went and I told my mom and dad, they would be like, oh God, our daughter is schizophrenic and we need to get her medicated, because this is the reaction, right? It's not like you're going to be like, oh, she's just tapping into her intuition. She has that little sixth sense gift, right? But we all have this gift. It's just a matter of leaning into it and at a level that feels right for you. What do you feel comfortable with? And that's kind of, how it started. And I did block it out. It was scary. And at times, sometimes I'll see children, and if they have their hands over their ears and their heads bowed, that's what I used to do when I would hear these voices when I was younger in kindergarten. And because then I started to realize, oh, wait, not everyone's hearing these things that I'm hearing. So I just like put my hands on my head. And there was a day I was like, God, if you exist, you will make it stop. And it stopped. But then I needed to craft and to kind of hone back into that to really, learn how to control it in a way that it didn't consume me and overtake my normal life. So I could hear me and you speaking and not
Mm.
hear, these angels or, these messages from, that collective. And I think that this is something that a lot of people, a lot of children do experience. And what's the reality of it? We push it off to the side because if we can't see it for what it is, then it doesn't exist. But what do you feel? It's a matter of going in and knowing, okay, could this be something more? And Because if you're thinking about it, children were coming into this life at a young age. If you're from that other side, right, where that other alternate place exists, heaven, whatever you believe in, right? You're coming into this earth, like you're so close to that. So I think that, it's just important and that's really why I'm trying to get the message out, is not only for adults to listen to themselves and kind of hone into themselves. And of course, this isn't to dismiss if, people are hearing voices and they may have a mental disorder, like that's total 100%. But in this case, that was not me. And this is just a kind of, my point in doing what it is that I'm doing and what I feel I'm called to do is just to bring awareness to that and to help people hone into that. And not only themselves, but maybe to be aware of certain things that their children may be experiencing. I know that is part of the gift that I was blessed with coming into this world, this lifetime, is my family was accepting to a point, whereas my aunt is like, oh yeah, my our cousin, like she saw granddad when she came, she was like 3 years old. Like there's these experiences, these things that have happened where they're open to that. And I know sometimes when you're surrounded by people with certain things, like it can make it easier or it can make it harder to lean into that, whereas that could be another reason why someone may be stagnated. Maybe they're blocking themselves because of the person that they're with, because they're afraid to express these weird occurrences or things that are happening to them, because what will that person say? How will that person react?
So you feel like you've been brought to help people kind of allowed to express themselves and actually connect to some of these like senses.
Yeah. And, it's not to say this is the way it has to be. I think that's the biggest point. And that's one of the reasons why people brought up with religion, being in a religious background, again, it can go one of both ways. You can really lean into that faith, or it can completely push you away. And I think it's just important to lean into what resonates with you. What is it that you're experiencing to give you that belief that there could be something else, that you are being guided, because it's easy when you are in those moments of darkness to allow it to spiral, to, think that, your lady luck is out. But you can always, like I say, flip the penny, so you're shifting that mindset, to really know that you are right where you belong. Like you are exactly where you belong, no matter where it is, regardless of whether you can see it or not.
What do you, it sounds like you've got like, you obviously had this sense from a young age for perhaps the individual. I know we've all got like different views, different experiences, perhaps for the individual who's like maybe a hugely like logical thinker, and they're just like a bit of an overanalyzer, a bit of an overthinker, and they just find it really hard, but they're open at the same time to getting in touch with their intuition, but they're not very used to it. Have you kind of experienced anyone like that before? And what kind of guidance might you give them, that someone who wants to get more in touch with that, but they struggle to do that?
I'm going to give you an example. This has happened with people I've known in my life that are very, no, nothing exists. I don't get it. And they don't get it. They've still supported me, which is huge. That's the biggest thing. That's all I can ask for, and if you are open, that's it. Like, I'm not going to get in a spiritual face-off battle with you. I'm not going to fight for what it is that I believe exists, because I feel it, and it's, I feel like, to be completely honest, it is those dark moments, right? Those shadows that come forth, whether it is losing a job, losing a loved one, losing your home, something detrimental, a relationship, whatever it is. It's usually, and not always, like it can come out of light experiences as well. But I feel as if people that do not believe are turned into believers when they are in their weakest moments and things happen to them personally. So, for example, a very, very good friend of mine, spiritual sister, I call her, unfortunately passed away not too long ago. And she would tell me about her husband who was like, it's not like, I don't get it, but like, do your thing. It's cool, but it's not happening. And he shared some personal experiences with me where he was like, Melissa, like, I know she is here. And I know that she placed these things to me. Like, I see it, like, and I like it, I get it, and it's to get to that point, sometimes it takes that for you to open your eyes to something else that maybe you don't want to see, because it's so easy to get into the routine. And listen, we need that balance in the world. Like if you are in that realistic state of mind and it's do, that's great. Sometimes I'm a little too up in the woo woo clouds, sometimes I'm like, all right, I need to ground my
You
root
do you.
chakra,
Yeah.
bring it down, um, but it's great because we need that, we need that balance. And like, that's what makes you, you. I just try to encourage some people who aren't quite like meh, like I don't know, just to be open to it. And like maybe then you'll start to notice something. And it can be as simple as like you're just starting to notice maybe a symbol, a sign in the universe. It's being planted, it's being delivered to you. And it could be that you're just overlooking it, you're not even paying attention. And maybe then it's a matter of, well, what the heck does this mean? Like you don't understand it, you can't comprehend it. But just bringing the awareness to that, it's trying to tell you something. The time is trying to tell you something. Like you look at the clock, it's these weird synchronicities, these happenings that are not, I don't call them coincidence, they're coincidences. It's spelled the same way, like the coin. Like it's no coincidence when certain things happen. And I think sometimes it just takes a matter of, you can be like, oh, okay, like whatever, like it's ironic that that happened or this just happened. And, the light's on again. Okay. I don't know. Like maybe something's going on. Maybe I'm seeing this bird that keeps popping up on my windowsill, like whatever it could be. You can keep brushing it off and that's fine. Like maybe you just don't want to tap in. But the moment that you can turn that switch and be like, maybe there's something more to this. Let me look into this. How does this make me feel? What is it that this is making me, you may see something and then it immediately makes you think of somebody. Well, hello. Like that's your message. That's your guidance. That's just telling you that they got your back. Universe, God, whatever you believe in, they got your back.
Super interesting your point about because I can relate to it, like when you're perhaps in that biggest struggle and things are dark and it's almost like you can kind of feel like okay, well, this is just personal experience again, like all different and all these different views, but it's like you can kind of almost feel like I felt like in my darkest time, like about a year ago, like I was like sort of being touched by like, people in my like relatives that are kind of like were there for me, like kind of, give me a hug and those kind of things. And it's just interesting that it's in that. So I can relate to the darkest moments, sort of like all the toughest times. Sometimes you feel that connection sometimes, but yeah.
And it's the sensory, it's whether it's touch, you're feeling things with the body, whether you're hearing things. Like I said, I'm very clairaudient. I hear, that's what my main thing is. Some people see things like it's like kind of leaning into your third eye, that vision, like above your forehead, in between the eyebrows is, you just kind of see it. Like it could be like a passing and you're like, huh, like what could that be? Or what could that mean? And then it comes into fruition. So, really it's just honing into whatever that craft may be. And like by you recognizing that, I'm sure, your loved ones were coming forward even more. Like you felt it more in that embrace, being as how like you were receptive to it.
Yeah, certainly like made me think when you you touch on that point a little bit with kind of like hearing these message and kind of like going and noticing these signs. Like for you personally, when you're sort of like going through life, do you find yourself going, because some of us are so structured, so like left-brained and focused on a certain way. Others will be a bit more like, go a bit more intuition. Do you find you're more that side? Do you find you have a bit of a balance? Just be really interesting to, in
Mhm.
some ways, just be interesting to hear.
So when it comes to my personal business with yoga, Reiki, writing
Mm,
my book, it's all intuitive. Like it is just what I am
mm,
feeling. I'm honing into that. I'm in that space, meditating, being guided in that moment. And I think it's because I am just that connected, with my higher self, and channeling the best version of myself when I'm in those moments. Even podcasting, it's when I'm in that creative space. I will say there have been it's difficult when you are in a full-time position. And I'm not referencing my full-time position now, but what I'm saying is it's very easy to get consumed with the mundane of, okay, like sticking with that routine. And of course, you have expectations and of others and people that are like telling you how they think that it should be, right? Whether that's
mm.
in any area, it could be work, it could be with your family, it could be even with your friends. But it is so important to go with your gut when you can. And there have been a few instances, even in the workplace, where I may have been like, this is a horrible idea. We should not do this, and I was told, well, you got to do it. And then it backfired, or things happened. But I think it's really important to, regardless of what position you're doing, to find some joy and creativity in it, whatever it may be. If you can lean into that joy, because it's when people get so in that regimented mode that they lose sight of what it is that is really bringing them there, and I can look back in moments where, I was waitressing at restaurants and I'm like, oh my God, like there were times like where I was like, oh my God, I'm not making any money. Like this sucks. I'm here late, da, 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 da. But when I came in and I was like connecting with people and we were having these conversations about what we're talking about, like random things would come up, or I'm in my light, I am in my joy, I'm in my creativity. Like you can make the best out of any situation, any area that you're in. And I think it is important to balance it out, and find that like there are times where I need to discipline myself because I am very intuitive. That's where I lean in with. But then there's a point where it's like, all right, got to get it done, But at this vice versa, I think it's important for people who are very disciplined. It may work, but there's times you just need to like step back, do something for yourself, meditate for 5 minutes, take a lunch break. I mean, it's so important to do what feels best for you. And sometimes it means taking another path and just being open to what that path may be.
Yeah. No, I love that answer, and your views on like going the flow versus the structure there, because yeah, everyone's kind of like different with with their approach on that side of things. I with a lot of this day and age, like, and I'm talking to quite a few guests about this recently, like, there's like a lot of noise, a lot of busyness, and everything going about. Do you find time personally to like, sit with yourself in silence, find time for being with yourself? Just like to kind of hear your view on
Yeah.
that, because I've been talking to a couple of guests about it, whether we were talking about walking just in nature with no podcast, no music or anything. Do you find that time for yourself, just to be with yourself, to see what comes up?
To disconnect. It's so important. And I will tell you when I do not take that time, even if it's, 20 minutes, just, out of the like week or like 5 minutes out of the day, I am not aligned. Like I
Mm,
feel it, frustrations are coming more to a boil, or I'm getting more irritated, or I'm kind of spiraling back to maybe those old thinking patterns that I used to have, where it's like, the most common thing is like, oh, of course this would happen. And it's like contagious when it's an of course, when it is something bad. I'm like, oh my God. And then I catch myself, or I catch it when others are doing it. And I'm like, not today. Like, I am not even going to entertain that idea, because you'll find it spiraling, right? So yeah, there are definitely times where I am guilty, as everyone is, of getting busy and not taking that moment with myself. But it doesn't have to be sitting and meditating. It could be sitting with your pet on your lap. Mine, it's Bee, my cat, that's a meditation. Like, I'm sitting, she's like laying with me. We're like just being one together. It could be if I'm about to jump out the door for work, I go and I quick pull a tarot card. Like, that is what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, what do I need to know for today? Boom. All right, done. It could be me listening to a podcast that is usually, spiritually related, something that's kind of getting me to think in a different way. And I'm listening to that on my way to work. Or like you said, going for a walk. I would say the most time that I'm most connected, and I have not been regimented doing this every day, but definitely when I am practicing yoga, because it incorporates the movement, the mind, and the spiritual end of it. You're getting the meditative, the breathing, the movement. It's like all together as one. So that is probably when I'm in my highest. Like, so I'm on vacation for a week and I'm doing a bunch of yoga. I'm like, let's go. I'm like feeling very inspired, very, one with myself. But it's different for everybody, what it is, I think, that can get you in that state. And I think it's just a matter of practicing and continuing it, and not beating yourself up if you're, oh man, I got out of this rut. Like, I haven't been doing this for da 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 da. It doesn't matter. Like, you just pick back up. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very sort of like personal to you, like what you feel and what you feel like on the day, in that.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to rest, like what you were saying, being tired lately. Like, sometimes you just need to rest. Like, it's honoring what you feel that you need and finding and creating that balance.
Yeah.
And
the structure and and the flow it comes back to again. Just one kind of final thing I wanted to touch on really, is making, like, a lot of people struggle with like making decisions and trusting themselves. Be really interesting to hear from like your perspective, like how you find that like process. Is it sometimes intuitively you're like, yeah, this is right, I'm in straight away? Is it sometimes you're like, I need to sit in myself and then ask for a sign? Is it a little bit of a mixture of both? Because I know a lot of us struggle to make decisions in our life.
I know. Listen, and yeah, I struggle, believe me. Like, I sometimes, and it's usually not so big, making like life-changing decisions. Like, sometimes it's like, okay, what do I want to eat? And I just like, oh, well, I could get this, I could do this, I could do this. And then, then when you get with another indecisive friend, it's like, well, we're not going anywhere. It's like when you're stuck and you're watching the movie, like flipping through, trying to find a movie with someone, and you're like, all right, well, I guess we're just going to put this on because it's like, we just need to make a decision. But for me, when it comes to making those intuitive decisions, like I call it, it's like an intuitive pain. It's like a sense of knowing, like you just know, right? So and no matter what, if you keep fighting it, it's going to keep coming back and keep telling you, like, you don't need to keep looking for it. It will tell you, but yeah, even with me writing my book, I heard the message to write a book and I fought it for a year. I was like, write a book? Like, what? Okay, I'll write a book. And then it wasn't until the aha moment, when it's like, okay, can't make this up. Universe is definitely sending me a message like, this needs to happen, because I didn't listen right away. I didn't. I started creating my craft. I was writing, but I wasn't writing a book. Like, I wasn't jumping in with it. And then luckily got it back. And I was like, okay, now I get it. And everyone's at their own stage, their own level too. So everyone is going to experience it at their own pace. So, they may get it right away. They may know, like, okay, I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to do this. And I think it's important to listen to those intuitive pings when you get it, and not like impulsive, like, all right, I'm going to go on a spending spree or, hit the casino, whatever. I'm not talking those impulses. I'm saying like when you get I should do this, listen to it, because the more that you start listening to yourself, the more guided you're going to be. Like you're going to see so much clearer when you're in those moments.
Love it. I think that's a great bit of guidance to kind of like finish us on there. Although I think we could do a little bit of a card reading now.
Ooh, yeah.
I think you got a couple of cards there, and also we do a card reading, and then let's see what comes up.
All right, cool. So yes, I did pull. This is from the Egyptian Art Hovu Tarot deck. And I'll give you the info so we can share it in the notes. But yeah, I actually just got this deck in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was drawn to it and I love it. So as I was making my chocolate tea in my little celestial mug cup, I pulled 3 cards already. So we're already whatever we needed to hear. Everyone needs to hear. So the first one, this is the 10 of Swords. So the 10 of Swords, everything has an ending. It's time to let go of this part of your journey so that you can start the next chapter fresh. So this is kind of going in with that like harvest moon energy. I know we were talking about a little bit like before we started the recording, but I was kind of meditating the other day and I got like this impulse, like this feeling that we've been shedding a lot, and like now is the time to harvest. Like now is the time to reap the sows of our labor. Like what is it that you've been working on? And then very strongly I got do it now. Like that was like a very strong collective message. It was like do it now. So like if there's something you've been sitting on, what are you waiting for? Do it now. Let go of what isn't serving you. So this card is very relevant. I mean, obviously spirit speaks. So, all right. So the next one, this is the 7 of Pentacles. So the 7 of Pentacles, this is make sure your life is a series of sustainable actions. Keep your eye on the future and keep growing your energy and wealth. So this is reflection, keeping with the sustainable action. So again, what is it that's going to get you there, right? And then the final one, so this one here, this is Temperance. This one's really cool. Okay. So this is Temperance, and it says, hold back the floods from the Nile. Allow the fields to sustain us with nourishment, and let us recognize the balance between the wilds and the fields, that all creatures continue to exist. So that's moderation. Ooh, check this word, spiritual transformation.
I love it. Got to admit, it's a while since had or any sort of card readings at the end, but I really wanted to hear those from you. So thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, I hope it resonates with your listeners in some way.
Yeah, of course. So where can the listener find more from you if they want to connect with you and find out more about your stuff?
Yeah. So, well, as you know, I am big on Instagram and Facebook. I would say I have an actual group. It's Pennies from Heaven / Heavenly Pennies. But you can find all of my social media links at heavenlypennies.net. And that kind of dives into the yoga, the Reiki, and it has all of my social media platforms on there as well.
Oh, wow. Awesome. We'll be sure to link that up in the notes. So once again, Melissa, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Johnny. It's been a pleasure. Namaste.
Awesome. Namaste. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.